Log entry Supreme Command. General Kz'Thar reporting. My designation for this transmission. Subject anomaly, Terran sector. The primary focus of this debriefing is a phenomenon so counterintuitive to our doctrines, so deeply embedded in the Terran psyche, that it has, I must report with grave sincerity, presented unforeseen and frankly alarming obstacles to our strategic objectives. We initially cataloged it under primitive social bonding rituals. We were catastrophically wrong. They have, it appears, weaponized an emotional construct. They have weaponized friendship. The question mark in my initial dispatch, "They weaponized friendship," can now be removed. The answer is a resounding, terrifying affirmative. Our initial incursions, our displays of overwhelming technological and martial power, were calculated to induce systemic shock, societal collapse, rapid capitulation. Standard doctrine, effective across 1,000 subjugated worlds. Against the Terrans, however, these doctrines have frayed, met with a resistance that is illogical. It is not born of superior technology, theirs is laughably crude. It is not born of a singular, fanatical ideology we can identify and dismantle. No, the core of this unexpected resilience, this infuriating tenacity, stems from this friendship. A force we are only now beginning to comprehend, much to our detriment. My analysts, my tacticians, even our psychological warfare division are struggling to model its impact. It operates outside established parameters of self-interest, hierarchical loyalty, or even species preservation instincts as we understand them. It is a decentralized, emotionally charged, and terrifyingly effective defense mechanism, and in some contexts an offensive one. This report will detail my findings on how this friendship has been forged by humans into a weapon of considerable and previously entirely unanticipated potency. Prepare your cognitive filters. What you are about to hear will challenge your understanding of asymmetric warfare. First, let's dissect what I've termed the unbreakable bond, loyalty as a force multiplier. Our species operates on a clear, calculated understanding of allegiance. Loyalty is to the hierarchy, to the state, to the genetic imperative. It is structured, conditional, and ultimately pragmatic. If a unit is compromised, if a leader falls, the logical response is recalibration, reassessment of risk, potential disengagement to preserve assets. Humans defy this. Their loyalty, particularly within these friendship units, is absurdly personal. It is a bond forged not of mandate, but of shared experience, mutual vulnerability, and an almost pathological commitment to one another's well-being, often at catastrophic personal cost. We have observed instances where Terran combatants, facing certain annihilation, will not only refuse to surrender but will actively sacrifice themselves to allow a friend to escape or achieve a minor objective. From a purely strategic standpoint, this is madness. The loss of multiple units for the potential, not even guaranteed, survival of one. It's a deficit equation, yet the impact of such actions is disproportionate. It doesn't just save one individual, it ignites a firestorm of resolve in the survivors. It transforms a tactical defeat into a legend, a rallying cry. These friends who witness such sacrifice do not break, they harden. Their determination to avenge, to validate that sacrifice, becomes a terrifying force multiplier. Our psychological operations, designed to sow discord and fear, to highlight the futility of resistance, frequently shatter against this wall of mutual devotion. We can demonstrate their technological inferiority, the hopelessness of their situation. We can offer incentives for capitulation or betrayal. And while these tactics show some efficacy at a macro, societal level where fear can corrode broader structures, they consistently fail when confronted by these tightly knit friendship circles. They seem to draw strength from the very pressure we apply. The more dire the circumstances, the tighter these bonds constrict, becoming less like a chain, which can be broken at its weakest link, and more like a solid, unyielding core. We've seen it in their historical records, which we initially dismissed as myth and propaganda. Tales of soldiers holding a line against impossible odds, not for a distant emperor or abstract ideal, but for the person standing next to them. This isn't unique to their military, it pervades their civilian structures. Small communities facing disaster, individuals supporting each other through personal crises. They call it having each other's backs. We call it a critical failure in our predictive models of enemy behavior. This loyalty isn't just an emotional quirk, it's a combat doctrine. It creates units that are incredibly difficult to demoralize, to scatter, to break. Each member fights not just for their own survival, but with the ferocity of one defending their entire existence, because in a very real sense, their friend is a part of their existence. Underestimate this at your peril. It is a shield, and a potent one. Second, consider the intelligence of trust, friendship, as an unconventional information network. Our intelligence gathering relies on sophisticated surveillance, decryption, and infiltration of established communication hierarchies. We target command structures, data hubs, official channels. The Terrans, however, operate a parallel system, one that is almost entirely opaque to our methods. It is an information network built on trust, intimacy, and shared context, the very essence of their friendship. Information, often critical, sometimes seemingly trivial but later proving vital, flows through these networks with astonishing speed and accuracy. It's not transmitted via encrypted data streams we can intercept, but through nuanced conversations, shared glances, unspoken understandings cultivated over years of mutual reliance. They call it gossip, the grapevine, a gut feeling shared between mates. We call it an operational nightmare. Imagine trying to plant disinformation into a system where the primary validation protocol is not a security clearance, but a deeply personal assessment of the source's character built over years. Would Sarah lie to me about this? No, not about something this important. That intuitive check, that reliance on perceived integrity, is incredibly difficult to bypass. Our infiltrators, no matter how well-trained in Terran language and customs, struggle to penetrate these inner circles of trust. They can mimic behavior, but they cannot replicate the shared history that underpins the credibility of information within a friendship. Furthermore, this network is decentralized. There is no central server to hack, no command node to disable. Every friendship dyad or triad is its own hub, processing, verifying, and disseminating information organically. If one node is compromised, the information simply reroutes through others. It's like trying to silence a million whispers in a hurricane. This soft intelligence, concerning local conditions, morale, unusual activities, the identities of collaborators or traitors, often proves more timely and actionable than anything we can glean from their formal systems. They share warnings, coordinate efforts, identify threats, all under the radar of official scrutiny. A friend notices something amiss and tells another. That friend tells two more. The information propagates, not through a rigid chain of command, but through a web of interlocking loyalties. The efficiency is startling for a system with no apparent central organization. The only organizing principle is mutual trust. This makes anticipating their responses, their pockets of resistance, their popular sentiment, extraordinarily challenging. They possess a collective situational awareness fostered by these bonds that consistently outmaneuvers our more structured, but less agile, intelligence apparatus. This weapon of shared trust gives them an informational edge in the very environments we seek to control. Third, we must confront the unpredictable variable, sacrifice and selflessness born of friendship. This is perhaps the most difficult aspect for our logic cores to process. Our combat doctrine, indeed our entire societal structure, is predicated on rational self-interest, hierarchical obedience, and the calculated preservation of valuable assets, starting with oneself. The Terran concept of friendship introduces an element of profound irrationality from our perspective, which makes their actions dangerously unpredictable. The willingness of a human to undertake actions of extreme personal risk, often leading to certain termination, not for strategic gain as we define it, but purely for the benefit or survival of a friend, is a tactical enigma. We have countless documented instances. A soldier shielding a comrade from an explosion, knowing it means their own demise. An individual donating a vital organ to save a friend, crippling their own long-term viability. Rescuers entering burning structures or floodwaters against all odds, not for glory, not for reward, but because someone they care about is in peril. These are not isolated acts of heroism. They are a recurring pattern, a behavioral signature of this species when friendship is involved. From a purely logical, game theory perspective, such actions are suboptimal. They defy cost-benefit analysis. Yet their impact is devastatingly effective against an adversary accustomed to predictable, self-preservationist responses. How do you strategize against an enemy who will willingly, even eagerly, throw away their most valuable asset, their own life, for something as intangible as friendship? It breaks our predictive algorithms. It introduces a wild card into every engagement. Our attempts at psychological conditioning, emphasizing the futility of resistance and the logic of surrender, are frequently short-circuited by this selfless impulse. A unit on the verge of collapse can be galvanized into a renewed, ferocious defense by a single act of friend-motivated sacrifice. It's not just the physical act, it's the moral force it projects. It shames the wavering, inspires the hesitant, and enrages the loyal. This weapon of selfless action means we can never be entirely certain of their breaking point. Just when we believe a sector is pacified, a cell neutralized, an individual ready to betray their comrades for their own safety, this confounding loyalty can erupt, shattering our assumptions. They will endure torture to protect a friend. They will face overwhelming odds to rescue a friend. They will forsake personal gain, comfort, even their own future for a friend. This is not weakness. This is not sentimentality. In the crucible of conflict and adversity, this selflessness becomes a formidable, terrifying strength, one that our traditional metrics of power simply cannot account for. It is a force that operates on a plane we are only beginning to glimpse, and it renders them dangerously, stubbornly, illogically resilient. Fourth, I must report on their emotional resilience, friendship as a shared burden mechanism. Our strategists understand the power of psychological warfare. Inducing despair, fear, isolation, and hopelessness are standard tools for degrading an enemy's will to fight. With many species, these tactics yield predictable rates of attrition in morale, leading to collapse. The Terrans, however, exhibit an unnerving ability to withstand and even recover from psychological stressors that would cripple other sentient beings. The core of this resilience, I am now convinced, lies in their friendship structures. When a Terran suffers a setback, a loss, a trauma, they do not necessarily internalize it in isolation, leading to a catastrophic decline in function. Instead, they share the burden with their friends. This is not a formal debriefing or a structured therapeutic intervention as our species might conceive it. It is an organic process of mutual support, empathy, and encouragement. Friends offer perspective. They provide a safe space for the expression of negative emotions, thereby diffusing their corrosive power. They remind the afflicted individual of their worth, their strengths, their reasons to continue. We've observed Terrans in detention facilities, subjected to conditions designed to break their spirit. In isolation, they decline, but when allowed even minimal contact with fellow prisoners who become friends, their capacity to endure, to resist, to maintain a semblance of hope increases dramatically. They literally draw strength from one another. A kind word, a shared look of understanding, a moment of commiseration. These seemingly insignificant interactions act as potent psychological countermeasures to our applied pressures. This shared burden makes them extraordinarily difficult to break on an individual level if they are part of a friendship network. It's as if their emotional fortitude is not contained within a single mind, but distributed across the collective. One friend may falter, but another steps in to support them. This creates a sort of emotional homeostasis, a resilience far greater than the sum of its individual parts. Defeat, loss, and fear are not merely individual afflictions. They become shared challenges to be overcome together. This also translates to a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Where another species might see overwhelming odds and succumb to despair, a group of Terran friends will often find reasons, however slim, to persevere. They bolster each other's morale, often through humor, shared defiance, or simply the unspoken commitment not to let each other down. This makes them resistant to campaigns of attrition that rely on wearing down individual resolve. You are not fighting a collection of individuals. You are fighting a network of interconnected emotional support systems. This weapon of shared emotional resilience allows them to absorb psychological blows that would shatter a more isolated, individualistic adversary. It is a regenerative capacity for hope, and it is infuriatingly effective. Fifth, we have observed collective problem solving, friendship fostering synergistic innovation. Our species values specialized expertise and hierarchical decision-making. Problems are analyzed by designated experts, solutions are formulated by command, and orders are disseminated. It is efficient in its own way. The Terrans, particularly within their friendship circles, often employ a more chaotic, yet surprisingly effective method of problem-solving. When faced with a challenge, be it a complex technical issue, a logistical hurdle, or a strategic dilemma, friends with diverse skills, experiences, and perspectives will often coalesce, bringing their varied talents to bear in a remarkably synergistic fashion. The key ingredient here is not just the pooling of different knowledge sets, but the underlying trust inherent in their friendships. This trust allows for a more open exchange of ideas, a willingness to propose unconventional solutions without fear of ridicule or censure, and a more robust debate that often leads to superior outcomes. In a rigid hierarchy, subordinates may hesitate to challenge the assumptions of superiors. Among friends, however, such challenges are often seen as constructive, part of the collaborative process. We have seen this in action repeatedly. Small, isolated Terran units, cut off from command, improvising ingenious solutions to tactical problems that our simulations predicted were insurmountable. Civilian groups self-organizing to overcome resource shortages or repair critical infrastructure using a patchwork of skills held by various friends within the community. This isn't a formal think tank process. It's organic, emergent, and driven by the desire to achieve a common goal for the benefit of the group, a group held together by these effective ties. One friend might be an engineer, another a medic, another a former security officer, another simply a charismatic motivator. Individually, their capacity to address a multifaceted crisis is limited. Together, fueled by mutual loyalty and a shared desire to protect one another, they become a remarkably potent problem-solving unit. They learn from each other rapidly, adapt strategies on the fly, and demonstrate a level of creative improvisation that our more regimented units struggle to match. Our doctrines emphasize adherence to established protocols. Their friendships seem to encourage a breaking of molds, a thinking outside the box, as they term it. This weapon of collaborative intelligence born from trusted relationships means they can generate novel solutions in unexpected places, often using limited resources in ways we failed to anticipate. It's a distributed innovation engine, and its unpredictability makes it a significant tactical concern. They don't just follow orders, they create solutions together. Sixth, there is the phenomenon I term morale contagion, friendship as a conduit for inspiration and motivation. Morale, as we know, is a critical factor in any conflict or protracted period of adversity. We expend considerable resources attempting to degrade enemy morale and bolster our own through carefully controlled information and displays of power. With Terrans, morale appears to possess an almost viral quality, transmitted rapidly and effectively through the conduits of friendship. The courage, determination, or even defiant optimism of a single individual can uplift an entire group of friends, cascading outwards with remarkable speed. Consider a scenario. A unit is pinned down, suffering casualties, their situation appearing hopeless. Logic dictates a decline in fighting spirit, perhaps surrender. But then one individual, spurred by loyalty to their friends, performs an act of unexpected bravery, a daring counterattack, a moment of defiant humor in the face of death, a steadfast refusal to yield. This act, witnessed by their friends, doesn't just momentarily lift spirits. It can fundamentally alter the emotional landscape of the group. It becomes a spark. Others, inspired by this example and unwilling to be perceived as letting their brave friend down, find renewed strength. This is not a top-down directive from a commander. It is a peer-to-peer amplification of positive emotional states. Hope becomes contagious. Determination becomes infectious. We've seen it turn the tide in localized engagements where, by all our metrics, the Terran forces should have broken. Conversely, fear and despair can also spread, but the tight-knit nature of these friendship groups often acts as a firebreak, with stronger members shoring up the resolve of those who are faltering. This morale weapon is exceptionally difficult to counter. Our propaganda, our attempts to demoralize, can be nullified by a single, compelling example of resilience within a trusted circle. Stories of such acts of friendship-fueled bravery spread through their informal networks, becoming legends that sustain morale far beyond the initial event. They tell stories of friends who stood together, who fought for each other, who never gave up, and these stories become a source of collective strength, a cultural immune response to despair. The sheer power of shared experience and mutual encouragement within these friendship units creates a psychological buoyancy that can keep them fighting, hoping, and striving long after our models predict systemic collapse. They literally feed off each other's courage. This makes them unpredictable, yes, but more importantly, it makes them far more durable under pressure than their material circumstances would suggest. This weapon of contagious inspiration is a testament to their baffling and formidable collective spirit. Seventh, and perhaps most insidiously from a long-term strategic perspective, is what I call the generational echo, friendship as a cultural perpetuation mechanism. This is not about immediate tactical advantages, but about the long-term resilience and cultural cohesion of the Terran species, fostered through the idealization and transmission of friendship itself. They don't just experience friendship, they codify it, celebrate it, and transmit its values through their stories, their art, their educational systems, and their familial narratives. Tales of legendary friendships, of loyalty and sacrifice between companions, are central to their cultural mythos. These are not merely entertaining fictions. They are instructional narratives that imprint upon the young the profound importance and power of these bonds. Children are taught, implicitly and explicitly, that forming strong, loyal friendships is a virtue, a source of strength, a hallmark of a good and successful life. They grow up aspiring to be good friends and to have good friends. This cultural indoctrination, for want of a better term, ensures that each new generation is predisposed to forming these powerful, resilient social units. It means that the weapon of friendship is not a fleeting anomaly of one particular cohort, but a deeply ingrained, self-replicating feature of Terran society. Even if we were to somehow disrupt the existing friendship networks in one generation, the cultural imperative to form new ones would ensure their resurgence in the next. This creates a strategic challenge of immense proportions. We are not merely fighting a collection of individuals or even a nation-state with its armies. We are fighting a species that has, over millennia, cultivated an emotional and social technology, this friendship, that confers significant adaptive advantages and is passed down with fervent cultural commitment. It's like a genetic trait, but learned, reinforced, and revered. The stories of friends who stood against tyranny, who supported each other through impossible odds, who achieved great things together, these become the guiding stars for future behavior. This cultural emphasis ensures that the spirit of mutual support, loyalty, and collective resilience is constantly renewed. It means that even if we achieve temporary dominance, the underlying human capacity to forge these bonds will remain, a latent threat ready to re-emerge. This generational weapon suggests that subduing the Terrans, truly subduing their spirit, may be a far more protracted and costly endeavor than our initial projections ever conceived. They are, in essence, teaching each new generation how to build the very weapon that confounds us. So to the Supreme Command, my conclusions are stark. The Terran anomaly, designated friendship, is not a primitive social ritual to be dismissed. It is a sophisticated, adaptive, and highly effective socio-emotional weapon system. It enhances their loyalty, creating unbreakable units. It forms decentralized, trust-based intelligence networks. It fuels acts of unpredictable and strategically disruptive self-sacrifice. It provides profound emotional resilience against psychological attack. It fosters synergistic collective problem-solving. It allows for the rapid contagion of positive morale. And it is relentlessly perpetuated through their cultural narratives, ensuring its transmission to future generations. We underestimated it. We saw it as a weakness, a sentimental attachment. We were fools. It is perhaps their greatest strength. It is the invisible armor that protects their minds, the unseen sinew that binds their communities, the unpredictable force that fuels their defiance. Our technological superiority, our logical doctrines, our disciplined hierarchies, all are challenged by this deeply human and utterly baffling power. My recommendation is no longer focused on how to break these bonds. That may be impossible or at least unacceptably costly. Instead, we must dedicate significant resources to understanding this phenomenon, how it forms, how it functions, and critically whether there are any analogous principles we might, however alien they seem, adapt for our own purposes or at least develop effective countermeasures against. For now, know this: When you engage the Terrans, you are not merely engaging individuals. You are engaging the collective power of their friendships. And that, I can now state with certainty, is a force to be reckoned with. A force that has, against all our expectations, turned something as abstract as an emotional bond into a formidable instrument of survival and resistance. They have indeed weaponized friendship, and the universe may never be quite the same for it. Kz'Thar out. Faint telemetry sounds fade to silence. For you listening to this alien perspective, though fictional, serves a vital purpose. It's a stark reminder of a power you possess, a power so intrinsic to your humanity that you might, like these hypothetical aliens, underestimate it or take it for granted. The brutal truth is that in a world that often feels isolating, a world that pushes hyper-individualism, the deliberate cultivation of genuine, strong, loyal friendships is not a weakness, not a distraction, but one of the most profound sources of strength, resilience, and an unstoppable mindset you can develop. Think about it. The loyalty that makes you stand by someone in their darkest hour, and they by you, that's not sentimentality, that's a force multiplier against despair. The trust that allows you to share your deepest fears or your wildest ideas, knowing you'll be heard and supported, that's an intelligence network that can guide you through life's complexities. The willingness to sacrifice for a true friend, and they for you, that's not irrationality, that's the bedrock of a bond that can withstand almost any pressure. The shared laughter that lightens a heavy burden, the shared tears that cleanse a painful wound, that's emotional resilience forged in the crucible of connection. The combined brainpower, the different perspectives, the mutual encouragement when tackling a problem, that's collective genius in action. The inspiration you draw from a friend's courage, and the courage you find to support them, that's a contagion of strength that can make you both unstoppable. The alien general was shocked because his kind had no equivalent. They saw it as a bizarre anomaly, but you live it. You have the capacity for it. The question is, are you treating this incredible power with the respect and diligence it deserves? Are you actively building and maintaining these fortresses of the human spirit? Or are you letting them decay through neglect, through fear of vulnerability, through the shallow pursuit of superficial connections? The modern world can be an alienating battlefield. You will face challenges that test your resolve, your mental toughness, your very will to continue. And in those moments, the strength you find in genuine friendship might be the very thing that sees you through. It's not about having hundreds of friends on a social media platform. It's about forging those deep, unbreakable bonds with a few who will walk through fire with you and for whom you would do the same. This is your call to action. Recognize the weapon you hold, sharpen it, invest in it. Be the kind of friend that would make an alien general write shocked reports, cultivate loyalty, build trust, practice selfless support, share burdens and victories, solve problems together, inspire and be inspired, and teach the next generation by your example that this human connection is not just a comfort but a profound, empowering, life-altering force. Do not let this power lie dormant. Unleash it. Because in the fight for a meaningful, resilient, and unstoppable life, true friendship is one of the greatest weapons in your arsenal. Use it wisely. Use it well.